Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon to you, wherever you might be in the world. I cannot believe how quickly this year is passing. Obviously, it's October the 20th, and it's like, goodness me, the year is coming to a close. We'll be very quickly entering into 2025. Anyway, without further ado, I'm going to get into the video today to try and keep it short. I realise everybody's pressured for time, and time, of course, is going so quickly. Bottom line is, I hope, well, before I get into it, I do hope that the week has been kind, that everything is going well for you, um, that everybody is healthy, happy, and managing any challenges or conflicts with grace and knowing that they're supported by the universe. So in regard to the chitter chatter and what I could be talking about, I usually try to put something uplifting in this particular section. Well, I can honestly say from an uplifting perspective, yes, spring has started here in Australia. Yes, I've had the privilege of seeing the birds come into the garden and the trees again, which I absolutely love. We've had the 28s, the parrots. I've seen both types of cockatoos this week as well, which I absolutely love them as well. They're very loud, so you might even hear them today because I've got the front door open. But having said that, I'm going to focus on the fact that actually I owe you all an apology. I made a number of mistakes last week, so clearly I was distracted and not putting my attention on the recording of the video that I made. And this is because I'm working on the new content. An excuse, but that's true. Either way, it's particularly embarrassing, and I have deleted the yarning video that I put up last week because of these errors. I don't think that's such a huge problem anyway. But yeah, moving on, I've got a lot to talk about today with the new channel content. So one of the mistakes that I actually made this week was actually doing two videos on the same day, which you will have seen if you have checked the button to get notified. I did the introduction and an angel video. I published them both at the same time. But either way, what you will have seen is the announcement going up that we have a new playlist. This is the content that I've been working on. And if you've been following the channel for a while, you'll know that whenever I do a new playlist, I tend to give background to it before I go into the specifics of what it is that I'm aiming to talk about with this particular playlist or with any playlist that I create. So, for example, if you cast your mind back to the colour playlist as a prime example, right? The first video that I did was introducing that we were going to have the colour playlist, and then I provide the videos on the substantiation of why it's beneficial for use, where it's considered to be impractical, or where there's the big question marks around it, because there is some evidence to support aspects of colour therapy. And when I say evidence, I mean evidence that's accepted in the mainstream, such as colour is a legitimate therapy in psychological circles. But the history of it is not necessarily one that scientists or researchers would give credibility to, such as the rays, the healing rays, or even chromotherapy. But having said that, of course, I believe in this stuff. This is where it becomes different from, science and metaphysics clash, shall we say. Anyway, I distracted myself. The point I was trying to make is I give some overall and general type information videos, and then I will go into the specifics of the content for the channel. So when we're talking about the colour playlist, of course, I did do the general introductory type ones, and then I went into the specific and individual videos looking at the benefits and properties of not just blanket general colours such as, well, red means this and red means that. It's breaking those colours down into hues and how they can be beneficial, and even how you might work with those colours as a group. So not just blue or not just red, there's other things that we can do, and how they relate metaphysically to the chakras and that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's what I did with the colour, and this is kind of what I'm going to be doing with the crystal playlist. I'm trying to follow a process here with the crystal playlist, and that is, the first thing that any of us do is actually we go out and we buy a crystal. And there's a lot of pitfalls that we can have when we're buying a crystal, certainly within the modern environment, because a lot of the buying is done online. And, even if we weren't buying online, back in the day, of course, we would go into shops and that kind of stuff. I do online buying, by the way. But anyway, I'm actually recording the audio for this particular video today. I've done all the groundwork on it, and that's going to be the first one that I release on the playlist. So hopefully that will give you some insight and information and help you. So the next video that I'm doing in the series after we do the buying runs with the logic as well. Is you get your crystal, it arrives in the post, or you've just bought it from the shop, and it's, what do you do with it after that? How do you care for it? How do you look after it? How do you store it? All of these things to prolong the longevity and the function of your crystal. If you're into metaphysical stuff, of course, you want to keep it in peak condition. I don't know if you can hear that racket in the background. That's, of course, the dog's got his squeaky toy and he's running across wooden floorboards I've got in the house. So we'll just have to pretend he's not here. I'll try. That snort was him, not me. I'm not going to talk too much about what I'm going to put into this particular video, and this is because I'm finding that, yes, I do get distracted easily when I'm doing things. I wanted to do a specific video that is separate that talks about clearing, cleansing and energizing your crystals, but I have a feeling, depending on how time pans out, that it may actually be condensed into this particular video that I'm working on right now as well. I'm doing the whatever it's called, the transcripts for this particular slide today as well, once I finish doing the recording of the buying tips. And then I'll give you some information about that. Then, of course, there's going to be videos on attuning and programming your crystals as well. And then I will go into the specific videos. This is where the channel's going to follow the normal format, or I should say channel, the playlist is going to follow the normal format that I use, which is the introductory videos, and then I go on to the specific and individual ones. And by that, I mean things like looking at, in this particular slide, we're looking at labradorite. So I'm not going to give you the full content that I would put into a video on labradorite now, but the aim is to talk about things like the colors, the hues, the hardness, softness, flaws and striations, any occlusions. Now I'll talk about those in a little while, what they are, but also the metaphysical purpose of each particular crystal as I load the content. I haven't done a plan as to what videos or what crystals I'll talk to first, but of course, in my experience of working with crystals, I also know that you can use one crystal with another or whatever. For example, when I'm going to do my psychic readings or services where I'm sitting down at a table, I will usually use 3 specific crystals. I hold them in my hand, excuse me as I swallow. But anyway, the types of content that I'll be talking about in the videos, and this is where I'm going to ask you for some help in a little while, is I'm going to talk about things like, here we look at labradorite, we see all these lines. Now, if a person is not familiar with labradorite, they might think that they are actually flaws of the crystals, but it's not. It's part of the formation, and in fact, it's part of what makes labradorite beautiful. When we talk about the colors, if I look at that image down, the second one on the bottom there with the pinks and that in it, this coloring is actually called the flash of the crystal, and it's called a flash because you don't always see the colors when it's directly in front of you. You actually have to move it around to the light or walk around the crystal, and you'll notice different flashes of color, and this is why it's called a flash. Now, of course, labradorite comes in a range of flashes. These are just examples of what I would be talking about beyond the fact that it's got metaphysical purposes and what they are. This is actually one of my favourite crystals, and I've got a lot of these pieces. I've got the palm stones, which are the polished ones that sit in your hand. I've got the ones that are single-faceted, which is they've got polish on one side only, and the back of them is what we call the raw material or the rough. I think it's what I would call labradorite in the rough or whatever, or single-faceted labradorite. The facet being the side that's polished. So I may as well jump ahead of myself as well. What I'm going to come to is that I'm going to ask you if you've got a favourite crystal and if you would be happy to share these photographs with me so that I can speak to the properties of the crystal. You might learn more information by sharing them with me. You might also be able to give some information yourself on what you use your beloved crystal for. and what kind of experiences that you've had with it. The point being that it has to be copyright free. Now, I'm more than happy to whatever attribute or acknowledge the person that has given me the photograph as well to be able to use, because I need, as I say, I need copyright free photographs. And what I'm finding is that the photographs that are online just simply do not display the crystals as I would like them to. And I am a dreadful photographer. And I'm working on the buying tips right now as well, that video, as I said. But I can't help myself. I'm a little compulsive when it comes to crystals because I absolutely love them. So I'm going to give you another tip here. And I've realized as I do this, that when I do the clear crystal video, it probably will be quite a long one because there's a lot to talk about when we're talking about clear crystal. So what I want to mention here is with these couple of images, the crystal ball on the right-hand side, most people, I shouldn't say most, a lot of people might look at this and think like, ew, yuck, look at all those scratches and X and Y, and you can't see through it and all of this kind of thing. And they might think that it's a really poor quality crystal ball. But for some people like me, it's a very desirable crystal ball, especially depending on the size of it, right? Because it actually brings a character into it. And the way you use this crystal ball, there's multiple ways. So, of course, I'm not going to talk about that now. I'll save that for when we do the clear quartz. But what I can tell you is, if I was buying a crystal ball, because these are the traps that people can fall into when you're looking at photographs, is I would not be buying that one that the person's holding up. I would not even presume that that is a crystal ball, because it could be a plastic ball with water in the middle, because you see the line in the center, and basically it's an artistic image. And I really don't think that anybody who is selling crystals would actually use that kind of image because it's just way too dodgy. But the big but with this is sometimes you might see clear crystal that has bubbles inside of it. Now, quite often that's not a real crystal ball. Quite often that is just a glass ball that's been manufactured. But sometimes they do occur naturally. So I can talk about those kind of things and give you an idea. But as with when you're buying online and this kind of thing, it's just very, very difficult, because unless you actually are able to handle it, quite often you're not going to know. Anyway, what more can I say to this? Just when I start loading the videos up, please feel free to put up your own experiences, including your experiences of buying on and offline. So just another thing too, when we're talking about buying, and as I say, in this video, I'm just doing a little bit of a taste test to explain to you what these videos are going to look like. So in this video, perhaps it might be a case of somebody's looking for a ruby, For a crystal collector such as myself, I love rubies. Well, in fact, I don't think there's a crystal I don't love, let's be real. But when it comes to rubies, the one on the right, obviously, there is an attempt there to portray that these are cut rubies, they're gem quality, and they're desirable. Somebody would want to buy them and turn them into perhaps a pendant or a ring or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, from a photograph, you actually really can't tell. They might actually be plastic, who knows? So straight off the bat, when I look at that image on the right, I've got a question mark over it. I would be doing that one approach with great caution, especially if it had a big price tag next to it. If it was cheap as chips, I'd probably pay it and find out that it was plastic, and then I would know not to go back to that supplier for anything. The one on the left hand, though, with the white rock that the beautiful red crystal is in, I can tell, I'm fairly confident that that one, even though I haven't seen it or handled it, I'm fairly confident that this is a legitimate ruby. This is a genuine article, because the genuine article actually does have the host rock. I'm not sure if I'm calling that the correct name, but this is a ruby in its natural state. Now, what I would say is, looking at that, it would not be gem quality, because you can see there's white lines in it. So the striations there make it unsuitable to be made into jewellery. I think it's because if they've got striations, they can actually crack. However, for a crystal collector such as myself, this would be a perfect addition to my collection because I just love them so much. In fact, I'm going to use a bit of Australian terminology here because I really am. I worked out a long time ago, I'm a bit of a crystal glutton, and I've had to learn to use self control to not buy a whole heap of crystals that actually I don't need, and I'm just buying because I want them, because they're pretty, or because they speak to me in some way, you know what I mean, which this particular photo in the middle does. In Australia, I would be saying that this particular image, the ruby in the rough, is the bee's knees, or being more crass Australiana, it's the duck's nuts, right? I'd almost give my eye teeth to have that one because I just see it as being particularly beautiful. It is perfect. And I would leave it in that white because to me, that's what enhances the beauty of it. I'm really into the naturally forming crystals. I like polished as well, don't get me wrong, but I love this kind of one here. So hopefully you're getting a bit of an idea of the approach that I'm taking towards the construction of these specific videos that focus on the individual crystals themselves. And, you know, like all crystals are actually originally in a rough state. Very few come out with this pristine look about them. So when I do a video on any particular one, for example, let's talk about the labradorite again. I would like to talk about it when it's in the rough, if it's single faceted, if it's a tower like one of those photographs were, if it's tumbled crystals or palm stones or whatever, to be able to talk about that. So I can't get too many images of any particular crystal is where I'm going. So I'm going to invite you and ask or request this favor of you. Please send me some not videos, send me some photographs that actually highlight even the potential, what some people might call flaws on your crystal, because as I say, they add character, and then I can talk to these when I do the specific videos for them. And you might learn something, and you might be able to teach me something as well. I'm going to share this little family story with you actually while we talk about this, and why I'm asking for help with the photographs, because I think you'll get a laugh out of it. Yes, I've got lots of crystals around, but no, I really seriously am a dreadful photographer. And this has really come to the fore over the last couple of months because my son actually has been building a house. And of course, he works out of the state. This is a common thing that happens in Australia where people fly in and out to the work sites and that kind of stuff. So anyway, he would be away at work. He would phone me up. He would do the old, Mum, you need to go by and visit my house and take photographs for me of what stage of construction is at, because I need to approve it. You know how it goes. I need to approve it so I can release funds and pay the person, and you've got to do this and that. Of course, the first reaction as a mother is to turn around and go like, oh, really? Do I really need to go over there? I thought I needed to have a soak in the tub. But okay, I guess I do need to go over to that house and take some photographs again and send them off. But anyway, I'm just pulling a leg here. So I go over there, and I learned after a while that my photography was so bad because it just became so stressful for all of us, right? He would ask me to go over, take a photograph. I realised I needed to take 10, and then I would just forward them all off to him. So his phone must have been going berserk, so that he could at least find one decent photograph in the lot that I was sending to him that answered the questions. Invariably, he would contact me and go, and what is that? You know what I mean? Completely unimpressed. And then it was like, no, can you please go back and photograph X and Y? It was so bad, apparently, that he felt that I needed to get a new camera or a new phone. So I got a new phone, but I'm technologically challenged. So I've had it for a couple of months now, and I haven't actually got it working yet because I've got to buy a new SIM for it. Okay, that's the story there. But anyway, just because I think you're going to have a sense of humour about this, all right? So anyway, we've got past that now. Of course, the house is all sorted out. Everything's done there. And then a couple of weeks ago, the tap out the back went. We had a water gusher you know what that's like. You got to go and turn it off at the mains. So I've turned it off at the mains. It's like, now I've got to get a plumber come out, fix this tap up for whatever's wrong with it. It's all outside of my area of expertise. So I phoned the guy up and he said, "Can you send me a photo of the tap?" I thought, oh, mate, really? Like, do you really, really, really need me to send you a photograph of the tap? Why can't I just turn around and say to you, it's a brass tap, it's old fashioned, right? But no, I had to take a photograph of the tap. Fair warning, I told him I'm a bad photographer and it caused my son huge distress with my photography. So I sent him off the photograph and he came over and he installed the tap. And, you know, I mean, credit to the guy. He comes in, he goes, "Look, I'm really sorry." And I'm like, "What for?" He goes, "I bought the wrong tap." And I said, "What do you mean you bought the wrong tap?" He goes, "Well, I've been able to make it fit." He said, "It just was a little hard to tell from the photograph." He said, "But you're going to need to buy a new hose connection unless you want me to go out and buy a new tap, right?" And I was just like, "Oh, no, look, that's okay. I've got to wear that." Okay. If he became confused from the photograph, that's on me. That's my fault because I'm such a terrible photographer. And this is why, coming back to it, this is why I think it's so important that people such as yourself, if you want me to be able to give you information about the crystals in ways that you can understand it, it might actually be in your best interest to send me a photograph so that I can then look at it and answer your specific questions. And you know, anyway, I'm just putting it out there. I'll leave it for that because we don't want this video to get too long. So just quickly to wind this video up is that the Reiki update is basically, yeah, look, the manuals are still happening. I've now redirected myself working on the crystal content, and rather than keep revisiting this slide on Reiki going forward, unless somebody asks, I'm just going to actually shift this one to the back burner. As in, I'm not going to include it in next week's video unless somebody asks a question. And until such time as I've actually completed the manuals and I'm ready to deliver the, what do you call it again, the attunements. So just a reminder, we have these channel playlists now. Angels is complete. It's getting to the point where I actually need to update the introductory video on my channel, but just ignore it. I do when I go there. Yes, moving on. So after all that being said and done, everything we've talked about today, just a reminder that I'm opening a door to a conversation by putting up these playlists and sharing information with you. And I invite and encourage anybody to put up their thoughts and contribute. You know, back in the day, when I certainly got started on this journey, we would actually meet physically. We would meet up at least once a week, maybe do a coffee, sit around, talk about crystals, talk about our experiences using energy. It was an informal setting and it was just an information sharing that happened casually. And so therefore, I'm just opening a door to a conversation by putting up these playlists and the videos, and to really grow us all and to form a community. It's helpful if you input as well and talk about your experiences. But for now, I'm going to say love you, leave you. Thank you for being part of my journey. Have a wonderful day, wonderful week. Stay blessed. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye for now.